Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, September 26th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, there are more than a few preseason games last night. We're entering the last week of the preseason, thank goodness. I believe all preseason games end on Saturday. Then you'll have the final cut down to 23 men. And opening night, I believe, is next Wednesday, the 4th of October. I know that the Leafs play against Winnipeg, and I'm sure it's going to be a full schedule. But, some significant moves made today, waivers and some results from last night's games that I think we should touch on, Russ. First, the game I was watching, Montreal and Toronto, it's always an event when those two teams match up. And Claude Julien and Mike Babcock decided to put pretty close to what the NHL lineups will be in a little over a week. The notable exceptions were Carey Price was not in goal for Montreal. Jonathan Drouin had some insignificant lower body injury, but that was enough to keep him out. So those are two pretty main cogs for the Habs. Yep. But they looked pretty bad in a 5-1 loss to the Leafs. Now, I get it. It's preseason, and the motivation is not there for some of these players, but they're winless. And with the changes that were made over the summer, I think that has to be a concern for the Habs, for Marc Bergevin and Claude Julien.
I don't know if anybody's ever concerned about being winless in preseason. To be honest, I don't think coaches would ever say it outwardly, but I really don't think that that's a concern. I think they want everybody to get through healthy. I think these games have become as boring as the NFL preseason games that we've all complained about, or NBA. They're bad. I mean, you can see flashes. The best thing that you could spot is when young talent looks like it belongs. That's great. But then after that, do you see your best player or your favorite player playing a full 60? No way.
No. And, I mean, let's just say Leaf fans were delighted at the performance of Auston Matthews last night. He scored a hat trick, 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of the game. They're like, oh my God. But, and you made the point off the air, the one goal that he scored, and it was a great play by him, great hand-eye coordination off the glass. He deflected it with his stick past Al Montoya. But more than likely, if that was a regular season game, he would have been hindered to go behind the net to be able to come over to the other side, or he would have been knocked down at the side of the net. So, that might have been one of those preseason goals where it probably wouldn't have happened in the regular season. But that being said, Matthews looked very quick and very strong. And in interviewing him before,
he's against Al Montoya, so there you go.
Well, but I'm just saying, a lot of people in Toronto are a little hesitant right now because, sophomore slump with all these players. And, Matthews, he devoted himself over the summer to getting stronger. All these players say that, but you see the results on the ice. He's been pretty impressive, and he had 3 goals and an assist last night. So, the expectations now I think are going to rise even more for the Calder Trophy winner.
But I think that was going to happen anyhow. The funny thing about it is with preseason, I don't even concern myself with numbers, like how many goals or assists a guy has. I just want to see how a guy looks.
Yeah.
And I don't even care about numbers. The numbers are meaningless, and especially when in these 3-on-3s, they're trying even less in the 3-on-3s. Like they're literally just trying to get it over with if they can. Run the clock out. Get a couple shots on net, but
I think that there's been some preaching from the coaches for just what you said. Get through the preseason without getting dinged up. Don't block shots.
Right.
Don't throw that extra hit. Save the regular season, and I get that. Now, just that being said, there are some players and some situations going on in the league that I think we should touch on. Miro Aaltonen, who was a late-round draft pick of the Anaheim Ducks a few years back, went to the Finnish league, then went to the KHL, scored 44 points last year. He is in competition with Dominic Moore and Eric Fair for the fourth-line job with the Leafs. And he played last night in this lineup that was, I think, mostly NHL lineup. Looked pretty good. But Babcock, it's funny, Russ. and somebody was making this point this morning. Babcock was effusive in his praise of his players a couple years ago when they were the worst team in the NHL. Last night, they win 5-1, and he's critiquing the team about, you got to try more. There's got to be more effort. It's like it's the exact opposite. Now
he's back to now being Red Wings Mike Babcock, because now he feels like he has a team that can contend, and so he's basically taking off those training wheels because he knew that it was going to, be a rough season a couple of years ago. Last year wasn't, and now this year it's high expectations again back in Toronto.
Yeah, and I think he's going to he's very adept at using the media to get his message out, and I think that's what he's going to do. And I think that's going to be motivation for this team, because you're going to feel the pressure of Babcock getting on these players, trying to get and draw the most out of them. Now, switching to the Rangers, we talked at the draft. We've talked over the summer regarding the slim possibility of their first-round pick, Elias Anderson, potentially making the team early on, and maybe even this year. Well, from what the indications are, I don't know if he's going to make the team, but Philip Hedl, their other first-round pick, taken 21st overall, is really opening some eyes.
Yeah, he's opening eyes. I mean, he's a kid with good size. He's 6'2". He's only 190, and that's the worry. Like, that's he's gonna get stronger as time goes on. He's got a pretty good pro body now, but he's gonna get man strength. I don't think he has that yet, but he's got everything else. He's got size. He's got reach. He's got finesse on passing. He's got a great one-timer. Like, he really finds open spaces on the ice. He really does. And so far in preseason, he's been able to do that. Now, I think right now it's a little more open than what you would expect. But, in the under 18s, he was 5 points in 5 games. Like, this is what they'd hope they get out of him. And right now, technically, he's in the running for a roster spot. So I don't know if he'll play back-to-back against the Flyers. But, to me, if I was going to test him, I'd play him back-to-back and let it be against the Flyers.
Now, we've heard Brock Besser's doing really well with Vancouver. Clayton Keller is expected to make the Coyotes. I haven't been following the Coyotes preseason games as much, so I don't know how he's doing, but the expectation is he's going to be on their opening night roster. I know that Matthew Barzal had a really great goal for the Islanders yesterday, and I would assume that, he's going to at least challenge for a job with the Islanders. I mean, he'll
start the season for sure.
Yeah, let's hope he gets more than that 2-game preview that he had last year.
I think that was based on the coach.
Now, right? Yeah, I agree. Now, the interesting one here is Kailer Yamamoto, the first-round pick of the Edmonton Oilers. I didn't think there was any chance that he'd be sticking, not because he was drafted in later in the first round, but because he's not the biggest player. He's not the strongest player. He's extremely quick, extremely talented offensively. We've seen that before. He's got 5 preseason goals. I'm not saying that means he's going to make the team, but they have to be very pleasantly surprised at his progress so far.
Well, I think for as surprised as they are, maybe the teams that passed him over should be more surprised that they didn't take him, because it's not like nobody knew he could score, right? He had 99 points. He had 42 goals last year in 65 games. But again, it's preseason. There's a little more room than there normally is, but he does look great. I think what will happen is he'll start the season with Edmonton, and then I think he's going to have to keep this going to stay on the roster. But I don't think it's impossible that we talk about him staying on the roster.
Well, and that's sort of the same story with DeBrincat in Chicago. I mean, from what I hear, he's made this team, or he's going to make them.
Well, we thought that all along, didn't we?
Right. I mean, and that's where, maybe some of the NHL managers out there have to get that prejudice regarding smaller players out of their heads, because, Yamamoto is what, 5'8", DeBrincat 5'9" at most.
Yep.
They're skilled players. They're speedy players. It's a tough matchup for some of these defensemen to try to corral these smaller wingers. So, there is a place in the league for them. And I think, the Blackhawks got DeBrincat in the second round, and we both said, my God, of course he's going to the Blackhawks. Of course, they're the ones who benefit from this. But
just as an example, in Yamamoto's case, if he steals a job from Drake Caggiula, is that going to shock anybody?
No, I don't think it's going to shock anybody. I mean,
No.
And Caggiula had he had his moments last year. I mean, I know he played in the playoffs and he was noticeable. So, I mean, I think he's got talent, but I think Puljujarvi is going to make that team.
Yes, he's a lock.
He's a lock, and he you know what? He may be like Draisaitl a couple years ago. He played half a season with them. It didn't really work. They sent him down to the American Hockey League, and then Draisaitl came back and was more mature, was stronger, and had a 50-point year. Now is on track to be their number 2 center behind McDavid. Puljujarvi may have been rushed as an 18-year-old. He's probably stronger. He's got a lot of talent. We've seen that in the World Junior. I would think that it's potentially that he could follow in Draisaitl's footsteps.
Yeah, I think there's a chance for sure.
The other player I wanted to mention, just because he had a flurry of pretty good saves last night against the Blackhawks, and that was Malcolm Subban. But in looking up his stats in the preseason, he's gotten a lot of work. His save percentage is only .886. So with him and Zane McIntyre, you would think that one of them would be able to challenge Khudobin for the backup job to Tuukka Rask. But if you look at the stats, Khudobin seems to be winning that job again.
Yeah, Khudobin's won the job. I mean, I don't think Subban starts it with the Bruins, not in any stretch of the imagination. However, I do think, though, that this is a good thing for Boston because – sometimes a goalie takes till 25, and if it's starting to kick in for Subban, then that's the guy that's going to be the backup of the future, and that's good. So, because again, Khudobin is really, I know they're doing everything they can to pump up his tires and say you're doing everything right and yada yada, but they need him to perform this year.
Well, I mean, the problem with Subban, with them waiting that long is by that time he's not going to be waiver exempt any longer, and he might be on another team. It might be a situation where if they can't get him through waivers, and I don't know what his exemption status is right now, but I think he's 22 years old, and it's pretty, going to get pretty close in the next year or so. If he's not waiver exempt, then, some other team may benefit from him, sort of honing his skills in the American Hockey League. I mean, he is a prospect. He is somebody who's got a lot of potential, and the Bruins may not benefit from that, but we'll see. Okay, so there were some notable names on waivers today. I'm not going to go through all of them because that would be boring, but a few names that were either former first-round picks or notable names that were on the list. Jared Tenorti was one. Now, Tenorti, after basically sitting on the bench and sitting in the press box with the Canadiens for a long time, he got moved to Arizona, then now to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh waived him. I don't know whether he's just a borderline player or his talent was never realized, but I thought that this guy had a chance of being an NHL defenseman. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm always torn with these guys. I don't want to say it's done yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hope for his sake that, maybe he gets a chance to play in the American Hockey League, and maybe, he's a big defenseman, he's a tough defenseman. He's not exactly a fleet of foot defenseman, and that's
right.
That's the problem with this league turning towards quicker players. If you're not quick enough, then it's going to be tough for you to break through. But maybe the league changes, and, maybe his skill set fits what the next change is.
Maybe.
Frankie Corrado, who was the darling of a lot of the Toronto media because he was consistently scratched by Babcock. He gets traded last year to Pittsburgh. He was a black ace during their cup run, and he was waived today. I'm waiting for the lengthy pieces by the analytics aficionados to tell me that it was an injustice that Frankie Corrado was waived to Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
I don't think anybody's going to say that.
Yeah. Brian Flynn, former Sabre, former Montreal Canadian, was waived. This is the one that I'm intrigued by because a team that is looking for a fourth line tough winger who I think can stay with the pace still. Jordan Nolan was waived by the Kings.
Yeah, his skating is bad. That's the problem with Nolan. It's not been great. He used to give him an occasional goal. Now it seems like he can't do that. It shows you that if you just end up to be a gritty, tough player, that it's just not enough to keep a roster spot anymore.
Yeah, and if you look at the Kings now, I mean, remember that fourth line unit last year and the last couple of years was Dwight King and Jordan Nolan. Those guys are gone, and coming in now are the guys like Kempe. And not to say Kempe is going to be a fourth line guy, but guys like Kempe coming up, guys with more speed and more skill.
Yeah, because they're saying, well, we got to roll 4 lines that could possibly get us offense because we didn't have enough offense last year. So now their whole philosophy changes.
Yeah. No, we were both at the American All-American Prospects game last
week. You were there? I didn't see you there.
You must be blind because I was sitting right next to you.
Oh, you were that annoying guy next to me. That's right.
The guy who's complaining about the music all the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So we were both.
No, that was me. That was me complaining that for whatever reason in Buffalo, if you're an artist, and let's just say for argument's sake it's Bryan Adams, Buffalo will pick your 4th most popular song as the one they decide to overplay. So if
it's not gonna be Cuts Like a Knife. It's gonna be Run to You. Run to You is the Buffalo.
Right, and that's like 4th on the list. There's Summer of '69. There's other songs, Straight from the Heart, but it's just like, Buffalo's always gonna pick that 4th best song of yours.
But it shows the breadth of our knowledge that we go for different cuts.
But it's bad when it's someone like Frampton and literally the 4th cut. Like that's the last song you could think of for Frampton.
Oh, come on, we have to love the 12-minute song with the voice box solo. I mean, come on, it's great.
It was cutting edge for back in the day. It's no longer.
Yes, but we were listening to classic rock. Sorry, but anyway, not classic in terms of the players, in terms of their age, because all these are kids are 17 or 18 years old and will be in the 2018 draft in Dallas. And we saw a few players that I intrigued me and opened some eyes. First one was Brady Tkachuk, and obviously with the last name of Tkachuk, you expect, there's a certain level of expectations. His older brother Matthew, I don't know if he's going to be a star, but he's going to be a very good winger, and I think capable of scoring 25 to 30 goals. And Brady seems to have that same package of skill, speed, shot, and he's big enough to be an aggressive type of player.
He is, and he really is a great package. He's a great personality. He does have that great one-timer. He does have that patience when he's passing, that ability to just wait somebody out and get you a pass in motion. We always talk about in football the quarterback getting a guy while he's running, and it's nice when you can get a pass to a hockey player when he's in motion. And Tkachuk seems to be able to do that.
Yeah, and the other player that intrigued me was Quinn Hughes. Now, Quinn Hughes is the son of the Maple Leafs former director of player development, Jim Hughes. He's the older brother of Jack Hughes, who was the 5th overall pick in the OHL draft and is going to the U.S. National Development Program. And both of them are supposed to be like phenomenal talents. And we saw the older Hughes in Buffalo last Thursday. Not the biggest kid, but skill and hockey IQ top notch.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're talking about somebody who's smaller, like he's around 5'9", 180, we usually end up talking about their speed and what keeps them going at that. But you know what? He's another one of these players that I didn't even notice how big he was or wasn't. He just knows how to get in the offensive zone. There's no hesitation once he's there. He knows exactly what he's going to do with the puck ahead of time. It's just he's one of these guys that there's just the thought process is basically he's one step ahead. And if he stays one step ahead like that, it's never going to matter about the size. And we saw him lay some hits too. So the fact that he is pretty sturdy already helps, and you got to give credit to the NCDP. They do have a great weightlifting program, and most of these kids, even if they're smaller, are pretty tough, and they've had pretty good man strength. He's already on his way for that, and he already has a great booming shot that really he knows when to shoot it. Like besides the power play, he's looking for lanes. He's a very intelligent kid, and I think it's a rare combination. I think he's a generational talent. I wrote about it on sportsology.com in a little more depth, but he is a guy that really excites me. And again, if it weren't for guys like Torrey Krug, etc., he wouldn't have anybody to sort of shoot for to say, yeah, I watched these smaller guys play and they didn't have a problem in the NHL, so I don't believe I'm going to have a problem. And he trust me, there's not a moment in his mind that he doesn't think he's going to be a pro, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, and the thing that always strikes me is the second generation talent. I believe Kevin Allen wrote a piece on this. Not only Hughes, not only Kachuk, but Michael Pavanka's son Jake was in the tournament. Todd Krieger, a former NHLer, his twin sons were in the tournament. Ted Drury, the brother of Chris Drury, his son was it was his son, right? Was in there as well.
It's Ted's son, Chris's nephew.
Right. So yeah, I mean, there's some talent there, and obviously we'll learn more about these players as we get closer.
Yeah, there was definite talent. I thought the Kriegers were interesting because they both play defense now. They didn't both. Cole, I think it is, who switched over from a forward. So you could see he's got more of an offensive mind than his brother Christian, but they're both really pretty good already defensively. And Christian might be a little ahead of him defensively, but they're fast. They're funny in the interview process because they sort of complete each other's sentences. Like there's that's going on. And so I like that. We like that with the Sedins, the Ferraros. Like so far these guys are on the same team in Lincoln. Maybe they'll keep going to the same teams. It's fun, but they definitely are NHL talent.
Yeah, and Oliver Wahlstrom, who we both talked to. I mean, I love these stories where you have a player who's come over from Europe and the son is American born and he plays for Team USA. Wahlstrom's dad played at University of Maine, was a Swedish elite league player. Pavanka, obviously, I think Pavanka was Czech, right, or Slovak, but and obviously played for the Capitals for all those years. So those stories of like the Alex Galchenyuks, where the father was Russian, he comes over to America, and then he's part of the USA. That's the sort of melting pot thing.
Yeah, the biggest thing about Wahlstrom is he's sort of like this oh shucks guy that, he's got a great shot, and towards the end of that game, he had 3 or 4 opportunities to win it. He's a guy that literally wants to win the game. So he was like a little frustrated, but he had fun. He felt like he learned something from that. It's just, but when you interview him, he's been on the radar since he's 15, and there was no ego on this kid whatsoever, yet there's really good size and strength. And so he's going to be a top guy in this draft.
Okay, a couple news and notes before we get to the team previews here. Chris Vandevelde was released from his PTO by the Ottawa Senators.
The Flyers can sign him now.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was going to say, do you think there's a chance? Maybe it's
I don't think there's any chance.
Okay. TSN comes out with their top 50 players, their preseason rankings of the top 50 players. And to no surprise, they've ranked Connor McDavid ahead of Sidney Crosby. I'm sorry, just as I think it was the ESPN rankings earlier, ranking McDavid ahead of Crosby is idiocy right now.
I don't get it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think McDavid is a super, super talent. But how can you rank McDavid ahead of him when Crosby has just won 2 cups in a row?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. The rest of the top 10, Erik Karlsson, Patrick Kane, Carey Price round out the top 5. Malkin, Nikita Kucherov 7th, Brent Burns 8th, Victor Hedman 9th. So Tampa Bay has 2 in the top 10, and Auston Matthews 10th. Auston Matthews, supreme talent. I think he's going to be great. 10 after 1 year, I have a little trouble with, but believe me, in terms of people in Toronto, I'm in the minority there. Today is the Sedin twins' 37th birthday, Henrik and Daniel.
Somebody has to be a few minutes older. Who is it, Mike?
I think Henrik's the older one.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I wasn't in the delivery room.
Because it wasn't a simultaneous delivery.
No. They weren't Siamese twins. But they're both 37 today. They're entering the final year of their contract. The question is whether they celebrate their 38th birthday as members of the Canucks. We've heard.
Yes, they will be Canucks forever till the end of time.
God. I mean, honestly, if you're the Canucks and you're interested in the rebuild, and you're interested in winning within the next century, you trade them at the deadline, or you walk away from them and you spend your money on somebody young.
They will always be Canucks, Mike.
They will always be Canucks.
Okay.
All right, let's get to the team previews. First, the Pittsburgh Penguins. They had an interesting year. 50-21-11. They win the second consecutive Stanley Cup. Some significant roster changes: Nick Bonino, Matt Cullen, Chris Kunitz, Trevor Daley, Mark Streit, Marc-Andre Fleury gone. Coming in, I'm including Chris Letang coming in because he wasn't there for the entire playoffs. Antti Niemi replaces Fleury as the backup to Matt Murray. Ryan Reeves comes in as some muscle to protect Sidney Crosby and Malkin. Matt Hunwick to replace Daley. And Ron Hainsey, who was also a departed player on the blue line, and the free agent signing of Zach Aston Reese. Now, Russ, my main concern with the Penguins is not the talent on hand. I think they have enough talent. It's the fact that they've made 2 long runs over the last 2 years, and that can wear a team down. And I posted, the last team to win 3 cups in a row was the Islanders of the early 80s.
Right.
The Edmonton Oilers didn't do it. They won 5 in 7 years. The Blackhawks, the Kings didn't do it. The Detroit Red Wings didn't do it. So this would be a feat for the Penguins to do this. I just don't know if they can do it. What do you think?
No, I don't think they're going to do it. I know I'm doing the opposite of what I should do for a review, and I should build to it. But I don't want to tease everybody and say, yeah, and have it be no. I don't think they can do it. But I do think they're going to be right in it, and it wouldn't shock me if they get to the conference final again. Sure. But again, I think early on they're going to be missing some players. I think players are going to be going in and out of the lineup. I look at their lineup and I say, you know what, defensively they're good. I mean, they get Letang back, so that really does help them. The second pairing now is much better with Cole and Schultz now that Schultz has improved. Moving Mata to the third pairing makes the third pairing better with him and Hunwick. So Dumoulin and Letang, if Letang's Letang, they're fine defensively. Where they're going to have a drop-off is that, like third and fourth lines, you can jostle all these guys, Sheary, Rowney, Hornquist. If you have Kuhnhackl, Wilson, Reeves, or maybe Sprong gets sprinkled in there. To me, if you don't put Sprong in there, who had 59 points last year and he had 32 goals. He had 32 goals in 31 games, more than a goal a game in the queue, and then 20 points in 12 playoff games. Like, you got to give him an extended look, I think, because he could give them significant bottom 9 offense. But other than that, yeah, I think they're going to be depending on their top 6 for offense.
Yeah, and I'm not concerned about the talent. I'm not concerned about the exodus. I'm concerned about the durability of key players.
Right.
I mean, Crosby, the concussion situation, it's well documented, well known. Malkin is always good for an injury at some point during the year. And Letang, I mean, he's a great talent, but he's had so many problems over the last few years. We don't know what kind of player is coming back.
We say that every year. He'll probably be fine.
Right. No. Sorry,
one year he won't be, though.
Right. And even now the biggest concern since the safety net of Marc-Andre Fleury is gone is Matt Murray. I mean, Matt Murray's durability has been in question. I mean, he missed the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and if it was Antti Niemi in there, I don't think the Penguins would have gotten to the conference final. So, I mean, Murray has got to stay healthy and probably play, I would say, anywhere from 55 to 60 games. And if he does, then I think that they'll be, as you say, a contender. I just don't know whether there'll be enough gas in the tank, and maybe Rutherford goes out and makes a deal closer to the deadline and addresses an area of need as he's done the last couple of years. But I think they're going to finish top 3 in the division, but they will not get to the finals.
Right. I think top 3 in the division, conference finals, another exciting year. But if Murray misses 10, 15 games and Niemi's the guy that's in there, it's going to be a little touch and go, I think.
Now, do you think they go to Jarry instead of Niemi if that happens? If say Murray is out for 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. I think Jarry is next in line.
Okay. The other team is the San Jose Sharks. San Jose went 46-29-7. under Peter DeBoer. A disappointing year after making the final 2 years ago. They were eliminated by the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games. There's a few significant changes, most notably Patrick Marleau leaving via free agency to Toronto. David Schlemko goes to Montreal. Mirko Mueller to New Jersey. No significant adds. So you're talking, this is pretty much the team from last year without Marleau and those 2 defensemen. And Russ, I think this is a team that a couple years ago I thought you had that young core. You had the complementary veterans in Thornton and in Marleau sort of taking a back seat. But now, after last year, I mean, they had an okay year. They finished in the top 3 in the Pacific, but they failed to step up against Edmonton. And I don't think that – I think they're worse than they were last year. So I'm looking at this team maybe taking a step back.
Yeah, they could take a step back. I mean, the third pair is definitely weak with – if roster resource is right, if it's Dylan and DeMelo, that's not great. Their top 4 is fine. I mean, and that's what they could live with. That top 4. Martin Jones, you could live with. He's great. Yeah. So there's no problem there. Even Aaron Dell as a backup is fine. So that's enough to make the playoffs. It's just what will they do in the playoffs? Because Timo Meier needs to have a big year. Hurdle, even Joel Ward, Tierney. Like the bottom 6 has to really help them out because the top 6 is getting older. And, a guy like Donskoy is a really just a contributor. Bodker was disappointing, so he needs to do something, show some signs of life. So I look at them and I say, yeah, that's probably where they're at now. In typical fashion, roster resource does not have everybody in here. They don't have Kevin LeBanc in a role here, and I would have to think, based off the season he's had, he's in there. I mean, sorry, roster resource, you kind of blew it here. I think LeBanc will be some of that bottom 6 offense. I mean, he could improve this year for sure because he was getting a lot of points on the power play, but, he was young. He was just sort of working himself in. But he had a really nice season. He's only 21, and we're talking, what do you have, 20 points in 55 games for them. So I think he's going to play a role for them.
Well, I think they're hoping that Timo Meier is ready to step up. I think he only had 6 points last year in over 30 games, and I think they're expecting him to at least, be a secondary offensive source. Maybe he plays in the bottom 6 and tries to work his way up, but I would think that they're looking for that. I mean, the one thing I look at with this team is they may be in contention for the playoffs, but if they aren't, if they because Calgary, Edmonton, Anaheim in that division, I think, are at one level, and then I think San Jose is fighting at the sort of in the middle and the second level. If they fall behind and they fall out of the playoff race, there is going to be a bidding war for Joe Thornton because Joe Thornton's on a 1-year deal. It might be the last year of his career, and if they're not in a playoff position, then Thornton might be a piece that they move someplace for young assets.
Yeah, they definitely, if they're out of it, they have to make some moves for young assets. There's no question about it. Joe Thornton has to go. Everybody but Pavelski can go as far as the older guys. You're going to just have to do that and gut it out the following season. There's going to be a season or two where they fall back a little and struggle to make the playoffs. The Red Wings did after all their years of making it. Like, it's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. It's the cycle of hockey. And so they're trying to sort of break that cycle. And the only way you could break that cycle is if Timo Meier scores 50 points this year, if LeBanc comes in there and they weren't expecting him, comes 40 points. Otherwise, you can't replace those points from the aging players. And when they can't produce in the same way, and now you don't have one in Marleau, you're missing a lot.
Yeah, and the reality of the cap is the new contracts for Vlasic and for Martin Jones kick in next year. That means this is Joe Thornton's last year, last year in San Jose, unless he's willing to take a severe pay cut. And obviously, from him being a free agent this year and getting, I think, $8 million, he's not interested in taking a pay cut. So, that will be, I think, that will follow that team throughout the year. I think they will be in contention for the wild card, but I'm not going to guarantee that they're going to make it. I think they need another year like they got out of Brent Burns. They need, the Coutures and the Pavelskis to step up and do what they did in the last couple of years. And if that happens, I think that they could earn a wild card. But I don't think they're going to be.
I think they'll earn the wild card, and they'll sort of limp in. Like that time I told you I was at the draft in Carolina and I was talking to a Blues reporter, and he was so happy that the Blues made the playoffs. And I said, why? You could have had a higher pick in this draft. This team needs to rebuild. And I think they're out in the first round after they started to fall, right, in that last time that they made the playoffs. And then they had to, rebuild. It's inevitable. And it just seems like San Jose is following that path.
Yeah. Okay. We will be back. Sorry, my phone was ringing. We will be back tomorrow with previews of the St. Louis Blues and the Tampa Bay Lightning. X should be back tomorrow. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.